up? Welcome in. What's happening? It's Boston has entered the chat. I'm George Balekji in the PNC Bank studio. He's Jahmai Webster joining me remote. Jahmai, second time on the chat. I'm happy you came back, my man.
How about this, man? We had so much fun yesterday. I decided to make it another day occurrence, that's for sure. So good to be here, man. Let's rock.
I love it. Reoccurring co-host Jahmai Webster in here with me. We got a packed show for you guys today. Josh Uche traded from the Patriots to the Kansas City Chiefs. The Pats should have gotten a better return on draft picks, but we'll get into that trade scenario, along with going through other guys on the Patriots roster that we could see moved before the deadline. Also, Drake Maye is in the NFL's concussion protocol. We have the latest on what Jerod Mayo had to say with that and what the effects could be on the Patriots offense depending on who the quarterback will be Sunday against the Titans. And as always, we go through our winners and losers from NFL in Week 8. But Jahmai, let's start with the latest news from Josh Uche. So first reported by NFL Network's Ian Rappaport, Josh Uche, who's been with the team for 5 years, is basically a pass rush specialist, was traded from New England to the Kansas City Chiefs for a 2026 sixth round pick. I was expecting a bigger return. And for the fans that may not know,
Really?
You always want current draft picks over future because obviously teams get better as time goes on. And this is a Patriots team that's in a dire need right now of a rebuild. And I think, Jahmai, with him being a pass rusher and teams like the Falcons, the Lions, the Bears, the Chiefs, contenders or teams trying to get into the playoffs that have a need on the outside edge, I think there would be more suitors. I was surprised by a future sixth round pick. Now, you know, it could have been pick swaps. We could get into that. This is a good move by the Patriots because he was an expiring free agent after this season. But still, I want to see a bigger return. I would have liked to see Elliott Wolf play the leverage and the phones a little more in this one.
Yeah, you know what? I actually disagree. I feel like it was a good return for what they got. I mean, the fact that Jerod Mayo said that he was just a healthy scratch, meaning we were trying to put the best roster out there on this particular day, I feel like that kind of spoke volumes to just how the team is feeling about him currently. Mm-hmm. So to get something back, a sixth-round pick, yes, is not the greatest, but it is a draft pick. You never know what that can turn into. It's draft capital. You can always combine those with maybe some other draft picks that you have to move up higher or jump up a little bit more. You can never have enough of that. It's almost like prospects, right? When you're talking about baseball, you have those. You can kind of make some pieces actually help you right away. So I feel like we kind of discussed this before on Boston Has Entered the Chat about Josh Uche being kind of trade capital. So it was surprising how fast this came together. I think that's the part that surprised me. But this is a move that I pretty much suspected this entire time. And they finally pulled the trigger on him and goes to the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, what better landing spot for him right now, given how, good their defense has been playing. But I think the Patriots will turn into, something. This is almost like a win-win for both sides, though the Patriots won't be reaping the immediate benefit of shipping a player like Josh Uche away. But given how they performed yesterday, they can certainly get by without him.
Yeah, he's been a non-factor for them, especially the last 2 games he's played in. Over his last 4 games, he's registered 69 pass rush snaps. He's only had 4 actual pressures on the quarterback. So for a guy that is a pass rush specialist, he wasn't doing much as a pass rusher, but he was still winning. He had a 17% win percentage on pass rush opportunities. Now joining a defensive line with George Karlaftis, with Chris Jones, with a defensive coordinator like Steve Spagnuolo, and a team in the Chiefs that are win now. They went out and got DeAndre Hopkins. They're going for the three-peat. I would have liked to see Elliott Wolf pick up the phone and call the Detroit Lions and go, hey, that best team in the AFC, they're trying to get a pass rusher. They want Uche. What can you give for us? Before even saying a price. Pick up the phone. Call the 49ers who need a pass rusher as well. Call the Ravens. They could have used his services too. All of these teams, whether in the AFC or NFC, and then call back to the Chiefs and go, hey, we want a 6th round pick this year at least. I would have just liked to see a bigger return for such a high demand position and something that could be a game changer. You know what we're going to see now though, Jahmai, because the talent he has in Kansas City, the scenarios he'll be playing in where their offense hasn't been as explosive as we've seen in the past, but playing with leads, he's going to have a lot more opportunities. He has 2 great players opposite of him. We're going to see these pressures and these sacks pile up for Josh Uche, and there's going to be revisionist history. You should have got more for him. Why did you trade him away? You're right that they weren't getting the production, and him becoming a healthy scratch does say to the other teams, all right, they don't want him. It does look bad. Right now, you want more. And they now have, I think it's like 3/7, 2/3 in this upcoming draft. They got this 6th in the future draft. And you're right, they can put them together and trade up for more. But again, for this team, where the timeline to me for is right now, I want to see more. And again, this is Uche. He signed a 1-year deal. It was worth up to $2.9 million, but I think it was like $1.4 million
money.
guaranteed money. Yeah, he's on a rental if he was a longer-term deal. But this is something for the Pats where they brought him back. He said he could have gotten more elsewhere. He wanted to prove himself here. It didn't work out. At least they get something in return instead of letting him walk through free agency. But still, I was expecting more. Maybe, Josh Uche and a 6th-round pick for a 5th right now, maybe Uche and a future 5th for a future 4th. Like, there is a big difference between a 4th round and a 6th round pick on what can be found. But there also is, as you say, what can happen with draft picks. The book's not closed on this trade yet. It's going to be open for a while, and we'll see what they do in 2026 and what they do to make that happen. So he was an okay player. He never played more than 40% snaps in a season for the Pats because he needed to grow when it came to run defense, and he never got there, which made him expendable for a team. And I really, after this prove-it deal and him not being great, I didn't see him sticking past here. At least there is a return for a team that has a lot of needs in a lot of different places.
Yeah, and one last point, if I may. I mean, as you talked about, he was on a rental deal, so it was certainly trying to improve his capital for other teams that are outside looking in on the type of player that he expected to be, the type of player that he thought he was. But, I mean, I think maybe, and I'm not in the rooms obviously, but you probably did some damaging to your asset by by not playing him when he was a healthy scratch, when he had the ability to go out there, but you decided on some other pieces when you guys are fighting and clawing for victories on every Sunday. So I do agree with you with the fact that I think he's going to go there and be this dominating defensive lineman now because of all the pieces around him. So people are going to be clamoring and complaining about why do we get rid of this guy? But he's in a situation now where, as you talked about, they're ready to win now, and the Chiefs are a team that has been dominated in their victories by their defensive performances. So they haven't been getting it from Patrick Mahomes to this point in the year, and he's doing just enough to get by. He's pretty pedestrian, to be honest with you, not living up to his MVP level status that he has in the past.
Yeah, and when players get dealt like this, I do feel for them on like the human aspect of like he's been here 5 years. He's obviously put roots here. He's grown up here, going from a college kid to being a full-on adult. But what a great situation for him to step into, because playing on that defensive line with that coordinator, he'll rack up sacks. I'm sure he'll have big playoff performances. And for a guy on a prove-it deal that wasn't proving himself here, he can prove himself with the Chiefs, and then he'll likely get paid. I'm not saying a huge contract, but he'll get some nice long-term money elsewhere after putting together a playoff and possible Super Bowl performance with the Chiefs. So at least the Patriots did right by him, because he could have been shipped to, I don't know, Jacksonville, Dallas, I gave the other options of actual contenders. At least you're landing with the Chiefs with that defensive coordinator, and you'll be playing in a locker room with that quarterback in number 15 and Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I mean, this is a win for him for sure, and now he gets an opportunity to play on a contender, a team that's going places. And I think the Red Sox. I think the Patriots will see him later too, right? So he'll get to have some get back against his team.
Maybe if Red Sox players are at they'll be at Fenway. Maybe if Red Sox players go to Gillette to catch a Chiefs game and he's still with the team, they'll see him.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? We're talking about Josh Uche, and I'm crisscrossing my things because I was just watching the conversation the other day with Ant-Man saying he can play running back, and then Derrick Henry saying like, no, you can't tackle me and all that stuff. So getting my lines crossed here.
It's also like full disclosure, Jahmai, you are the sideline reporter for the Red Sox. I don't know if that switch ever goes off, even though it's the Red Sox off season right now. So it makes sense. You're talking Boston sports for you to bring in the Red Sox on that one. And hey, they could see him. They could see him. All right, let's go.
And I did a podcast earlier talking Red Sox too. So I'm like, it's on my brain.
Look, my man, you are versatile, you are flexible, and you know what? You get grace from me. I hope the listeners at home, and they will. They'll give you grace on that one. Let's go through the rest. There's other Patriots that could be on the trade block. So some names I'll throw out there your way. Tyquan Thornton, a wide receiver, was a third-round pick in the 2022 draft. KJ Osborne, as a free agent, signed this offseason. Davon Godchaux, who's one of their best run-stopping defensive linemen, interior D lineman, 29, but a leader on the team. There's Kendrick Bourne, who's coming off his torn ACLs, played 4 games, has been better. And Jonathan Jones, another veteran corner. Again, these are guys at key positions for positions of need for teams. Who jumps out at you, Jahmai, that you could see being dealt before the deadline as well from the Patriots?
Yeah, I mean, there's a five names that you throw out there, but I think at least I would say maybe two of these guys get dealt. Actually, one that I think is probably going to get dealt for sure. And I have no intimate knowledge about this, but I just feel like it'd be a match made in heaven considering some of their pass catchers' injuries and this history with this particular club, and that's Kendrick Bourne. He got his start with the San Francisco 49ers. He was a great piece there, or at least a complimentary piece. He's now turned into a wide receiver that you can count on and lean on a little bit more. They've had some injuries. They can use him as an insurance, being familiar with the system and maybe getting back out west. So I feel like he could be one. But I feel like where there's smoke, there's fire. And there was a report, obviously, by the Athletic, Diana Rossini, mentioning Davon Godchaux. I think anytime people are mentioned this time of year, there's obviously mutual interest around the league about maybe a player's particular skill set or what they can provide to boost the team. So this is the opportunity right now for teams to try and go for it if they feel like they're on the fringe and kind of get that difference maker at positions like the trenches where I think everything stems from. So that could be somebody I see going, but not sure about everybody else. But I mean, Jonathan Jones, he's getting older as far as, wide receivers' ages are concerned. So maybe a team like the Ravens would like to add him to their squad. But I feel like those two that I previously mentioned are probably some of the more likely pieces to be moved. We'll see.
Yeah, I like that you point out the Kendrick Bourne to San Fran. Also, first off, I thought Tyquan Thornton was a 4th-round pick. No, he was a 2nd-round pick. I forgot. He was 50th overall in that draft. But that shows what I think of him in regard to his play on the field. That I thought he was a 4th-round pick. He's been nothing for them. But to start with the Kendrick Bourne, there's a familiarity with the system. Obviously, Kyle Shanahan knows who he is. And with Brandon Ayuk going down for the season with the torn ACL and MCL, with Deebo Samuel, who's been in and out of the lineup, Ricky Pearsall, they don't know what they're going to get back from him all the way. I mean, the guy was literally shot right before the season. It's amazing he's back on the field nonetheless. And then even Jawan Jennings has been in and out of their lineup as well. The 49ers are going into the bye. They need it. They're banged up, but this is the time now to get a Kendrick Bourne in their building. Deal for him, and you have 2 weeks of prep to catch him up to speed, to get him into some chemistry with Brock Purdy. If it's a Kendrick Bourne that goes for me, though, and this is why I get back to I wanted a bigger return from Joshua Uche, is that there needs to be a top 4-round pick to me for Kendrick Bourne. Because again, Elliott Wolf has to play the part of when the team's on the phone, how desperate are they? And he has to play some leverage to a certain point. Like the Chiefs needed a pass rusher. The 49ers need a pass catcher. And it is a win now season for them. I would like to see Elliott Wolf step up and demand more, especially if you're going to trade though with Kendrick Bourne. That is someone that needs to be a lot because he is a leader in the locker room. And as we saw on Sunday from their pass catchers, where he was plagued by drops as well, they need some good players on the outside as they continue to develop Drake Maye. The one that gets me, I think KJ Osborne is dealt. And this is where I will go back on everything I just said. If you get a 6th or 7th rounder for him, get him out of there because he was signed to be a veteran wide receiver, to be a leader. He's on year 4 or 5 in the league. I think it's year 4 after being with Minnesota. And this is a guy that's demanding trades on social media and with touchdown celebrations. After finally catching a touchdown and saying, call God and, I'm just sharing conversation with an agent, he puts up another goose egg in their win over the Jets, where he's also not helping that locker room, where you've had your issues with Jalen Polk, you had your issues with Javon Baker. If you get KJ Osborne out of there and get anything back for him, it's addition by subtraction when it comes to the culture for the Patriots. And again, I know they got DeAndre Hopkins, but a different type of receiver. KJ Osborne can be that underneath quick guy that replaces that Rashee Rice void in that offense. To go to your Jonathan Jones point, though, I do like that, Jahmai. This guy's a vet. We saw how big he was in their win on Sunday against the Jets, where they're banged up at the safety spot and he was playing all over. It's tough to see a leader like him dealt, and that's where I go back to. There has to be a top 120 pick that you're getting in return for Jonathan Jones. And Jerod Mayo is trying to establish a culture here. It's hard, but he's trying to do it. That's a guy that helps establish that. When they had that bad loss against the Jaguars, and Jerod Mayo was calling him soft, Jonathan Jones doubled down and called him soft as well. Like he had that team meeting and he had that leadership speech. That guy's important. It's tough for me to see them part ways, but he does make sense as a piece to be traded because you have teams like the Lions, the Buccaneers, the Baltimore Ravens that can all use him as they've had lackluster secondaries, and they certainly need it as they're getting ready for a playoff run.
And that, to your point, I think is important because there is interest there with a player like him. He's got championship level experience, obviously being a much younger player when they were going about their Super Bowl runs, but still he's got that experience. He's got that veteran presence, and you got teams that need that help, maybe that voice to get him over the hump, especially a team like the Ravens who seemingly have underperformed to this point. Tough loss on Sunday against the Cleveland Browns. Obviously, it was Jameis's night, but still – you got to be able to beat the teams that you're expected to on the schedule. But also, you mentioned something that I think is very important too, as far as KJ Osborne piece, because this is year one for Jerod Mayo, and he's trying to establish that culture and trying to put his imprint on this team. So you don't want people going out on social media and kind of disrupting the tranquility within the building and what the coach is trying to do as far as messaging. You really don't want that in year one. And obviously, being a rookie head coach, this is something that, you got to understand that there's going to be some trouble in the waters, but this is a way to get rid of that and also get a nice return back, too, because he is a veteran. I don't think his best years are behind him, but he was one of those wide receivers that when he was with the Vikings, you certainly noticed when he was on the field because he had those superstars around him and he was able to kind of contribute in that way. Coming here to the Patriots, being a one option or being even that 1A is maybe not a role that he's going to thrive in as much. But I feel like that's where you can get some value and you can see what teams are looking for around the league. And if you're, the Patriots front office, that's a piece that probably would make sense to not only help you right now, but also could bring some pieces in to help your future as well.
Yeah, we saw him do it this past summer where Matt Judon was not happy, excuse me. They made peace. He was on the practice field, and then they traded him to the Falcons. And and that's him. He has to salvage this locker room. He has to salvage the culture. And if someone is not going to respect him as a new head coach, he has to establish that too. And there is that part of holding guys accountable. And if you don't want to be here, fine, you'll leave. And they got a 3rd-round pick for Judon. I thought that was a great trade. That was good on both ends. And so I wouldn't be surprised if it happens with someone like KJ Osborne. Same thing on a guy like Tyquan Thornton. I mean, he's had the drops. He's been inactive. He's been in and out of their lineup. I don't see a lot of return for Thornton or KJ Osborne. Those are guys that I would take any return for. And I think that's, again, I go back to, not to beat the dead horse, but I would have liked more from Uche just because that's a guy that can do so much and is so important at a position. He hasn't done it here, but you know his potential. If it's Thornton or KJ Osborne, I mean, you get those guys out of here, and that'll be more reps for Jalen Polk when he's out of concussion protocol. That'll be more reps for Javon Baker, who's working his way back onto the field with the team. And the other young receivers like a Pop Douglas that they need to get these reps. I think Tyquan Thornton is what he is. I was surprised he was even drafted out of Baylor. And he was an experiment, and he's from a past regime, and he hasn't worked here, so they deal him, and whatever you can get back. Osborne, that was a dud of a free agent signing, whatever they can get back. The one that got me, but you're right, though, because when someone like Diana Rossini of The Athletic reports Davon Godchaux, like, that's serious talks. That isn't a nothing burger. Teams are picking up. They're picking up the phone to inquire about him. Again, we bring up the 49ers or Kendrick Osborne. They need help in their interior defensive line as well. They need help stopping the run. And as they go into the bye, this could be something for them. If it's a top 100 pick, it would be tough to see Davon Godchaux go because he's such, again, I keep saying leader, but it is important in this locker room when you've lost David Andrews, you've lost Christian Barmore, Juwan Bentley to injuries, to keep a Davon Godchaux in there. But if the return is great for a team that's in the rebuild, and I think they're 3 years away from being a serious playoff team, a piece like Davon Godchaux, if that's a really good return, they have to pick up the phone. They have to inquire about it. And someone like The Athletic reporting on him possibly being dealt, that sounds serious to me.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's off limits unless your name is Drake Maye right now for this Patriots club. I think you got to listen to any and every offer right now and really leverage that for what it can do for you in the future, because this is, again, we talked about, this is not a year where you're really seriously looking to contend. You're going to vie for a championship, a Super Bowl. So if you can get yourself better now and then look towards next year, I think that's a good opportunity for you to do. So it'll be interesting, though. I think the NFL trade deadline is always one of those where it's interesting because unlike the NBA or Major League Baseball or some of the other leagues, even in hockey, you feel like, these one-year rentals – sometimes they work out. I mean, I feel like more often than not, they don't work out unless you get like a top line guy like a DeAndre Hopkins earlier in his career when he was traded. You get guys like that. They can help out like Odell Beckham Jr. when he went to the Ravens that 1 year. I feel like these are pieces that can immediately impact you, explosive players. But sometimes it's the unsung heroes like the interior defensive linemen that it may not be that big, sexy, draft pick, that running back, that wide receiver, that tight end, but these are kind of pieces that teams feel like, all right, we have some deficiencies here. Let's plug and play with these guys and we can get better.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what you can't underrate on this one is how it's like you said, it's perfect. It's not sexy, but if Davon Godchaux helps out a Nick Bosa and helps out that defense all around and helps out a Fred Warner, then that is huge for a defense like the 49ers. And other teams, even like think of the Packers, that they've had their weaknesses against the run as well. That's a team that will be in the playoffs, and that's a team that is a serious contender, and they need that help there. All right, speaking of, you said the one guy off limits is Drake Maye. I would say this too. Christian Gonzalez off limits in my opinion. I know you'd agree with
those two. Yeah, absolutely. I think those are my two guys right there. Everybody else, you can ship them off.
we run a tight ship. We're not no love lost for anyone. So Drake Maye, confirmed by Jerod Mayo on Monday, is in concussion protocol. Concussion protocol, for people that may not know, it's a 5-phase step, and literally step by step, it's like a ramp up. It's, hey, simply avoid doing anything that can aggravate symptoms, like practicing football, being under bright lights where there's loud noise. Get to the baseline of jogging, running, whatever, do individual drills, and by the end, are you good to practice with your team non-contact, and do the symptoms not come back, and that's how they get cleared. But he said that he was surprised that he was pulled off the field by Jim Whalen, and that is a medical staffer for the Patriots. He went to the tent because he threw a couple good balls. He stayed in the drive and finished it. But
yeah, he did.
Jerod Mayo said, hey, it's above my pay grade as far as pulling guys off the field and putting them in protocol. So he's chalking it up, and that's the right thing to do now. We have seen players, and I was talking about this with you and our producer, Ethan, before we hopped on the show. Brock Purdy last season, after a Monday Night Football game on October 23rd, had concussion-like symptoms on the flight home and was cleared the Saturday prior to their next game and played that October 29th, that Sunday. There could be that turnaround throughout the week. This Drake Maye one, though, no two concussions are the same. The severity or how light they can be, it doesn't matter. So I'm not going to say every concussion is the same. But the Drake Maye one, that was a tough hit. He was wobbly when he got up. It was back of the head. You know how tough that is when someone gets hit in the back of the head. This is something they got to do right for Drake Maye, and it's any player, but let alone your future franchise quarterback. And it's good to hear Jerod Mayo saying, look, out of my hands, he's in protocol. I'm not going to say much more. Whatever happens, happens. And if he's ready to go, he'll go. If he's not, we're going to respect him in this recovery.
Yeah, I think the NFL has been very careful with these neurological injuries and any type of concussion protocol or anything that's happened, especially over the last several years. I mean, the spotlight has been on these type of injuries and these things when guys have gotten them, and especially quarterbacks. And it's interesting because they're not hit as much as everyone else, but when they get them, it seems like it puts them out for a long time, these concussions, maybe because they're not used to getting hit, and who knows? There's probably some science behind that somewhere. But I think play it safe, man. I don't think you need to run Drake out there and play for you this week against Tennessee. I think you can get the job done with Jacoby Brissett at signal caller, giving him a full week of practice reps, giving him an opportunity to get back into a groove. He did play well for you, led you on a game-winning drive. He seems to have this second view at being the quarterback, figured some things out, some of his strengths, and he also ran well. Like, he was able to do some of the things that Drake provides for you on the offensive end. So I think his biggest thing is finding that big explosive play, which he did yesterday when it counted. When he found
Javon Baker.
When he found Javon Baker, exactly, for that big gainer when the pressure was right in his face. So I think if he can extend plays and then drive the ball down the field, it'll be much better to create other things for the offense and for Van Pelt to be able to kind of open up the playbook a little bit. So we'll see what happens with this, but I feel like this week is not, one, you need to rush him back, and considering that he is your future, just take your time with him. Let him get back when he wants to. I feel like it'll be a 1-week situation, considering he felt like in the locker room, as Jerod Mayo said afterwards, that he wanted to get back in the game, but obviously it was out of his hands. So he felt like that was a good sign, at least. A lot of times guys get knocked out and they're really, not able to kind of think about or really make rational decisions in that moment.
Yeah, it's an interesting matchup because the Titans' offense is awful, and like the Patriots' offense is not any better. And it's two teams that struggle to score, Two teams that struggled to rack up yards. And just as where we were giving credit for the Patriots and what they did to find a way to beat the Jets, that same recipe, and if they show up 2 straight weeks, this would be huge for Jerod Mayo because he shows that they can consistently just do enough to grind it out and get a win. And this is a week where the matchups are in your favor, whoever the quarterback is for the Titans. A team that is selling at the deadline as well, as you said, when they trade DeAndre Hopkins away. Like, there will be the tough matchup. They have Calvin Ridley on the outside, who had a big game, but you have Christian Gonzalez. This is a team that has a good run game, led by Tony Pollard, but can you just contain the run? And their defense has been top 15 in a lot of categories. They're not great as a passing defense. Your strength, you want it to be the run game. But what jumped out to me for the Titans, and I was just looking at the last 4 matchups they had. Look, Detroit ran all over them, but I'm not going to act like Jahmyr Gibbs behind that offensive line is the same as Ramondre Stevenson again behind this Patriots offensive line. Like, that Lions' entire setup is elite. But if you go to their Buffalo game, their game against Indy, against the Dolphins as well, more than 50% of all those running backs got their yards after contact. And Ramondre Stevenson only finished with 48 rushing yards. It wasn't spectacular, but Jahmai, he had 56 yards after contact. That's how often he was getting hit behind the line of scrimmage, because obviously those yards don't accrue until they get beyond the line of scrimmage. Exactly. He's been great at avoiding tacklers. Some of those plays I was watching back, like 2-3 guys before he even gets back to the original line of scrimmage. If this is a poor tackling team like we've seen, then that is what helps out Ramondre Stevenson. Because I say all that, whatever the offense or whoever's under center for the Patriots, it'll be 2 very different looking offenses. But both of those offenses should be able to find a way to pull out a win against the Titans. What's interesting in this too, Jahmai, is what you have to think about is with the Patriots, how do they approach it? Okay, do his first true road game, short week coming out of concussion protocol, do we want to rush Drake back in, which would be a learning curve? Or do we, hey, let's keep him safe because we're back on the road against the Bears, and let's just go with Jacoby from day 1, Monday, all the way to Sunday? That's what I wonder too, if that even enters a conversation.
Well, you got to factor that in, and also the fact that he is dealing with these concussion-like symptoms. So, he's battling that right now, and then have to think about a game plan and these things that require a lot of your brain power to be focused on the playbook. That's all the more reason to me to at least sit him for this week, let him get back. It's still a long season. I mean, you still got an opportunity to play him and see his reps, see what he can provide, off-schedule plays, everything that you want to see, the things that you saw out of him as an elite college quarterback. So you want to see that transform to the pro level. But considering that there's all these things, these factors dealing with this concussion and this first true road game, I think it's a perfect opportunity for them to slow play it. But the Patriots definitely need to establish a run out here. And Ramondre Stevenson only averaged 2.4 yards per carry. That's not something we're used to hearing from him. You know what I did notice too yesterday, actually, that comes to mind? I think that Antonio Gibson has been a little bit underwhelming in the past in the run game as well, because prior to coming here, he was one of those guys that you expected to pick up tough, hard-nosed yards and actually be a great runner for you. That's what I saw when he was with Washington. So I feel like he's been either underutilized or he just has not been able to perform with this Patriots offense to this point. And I know they've had their own set of offensive issues that have, hurt a lot of the offensive synchronicity. But I feel like this is an opportunity for him to kind of get more involved. And I just felt like he just wasn't running like himself. But I know this is, Ramondre's backfield. So I look to see him, get a bit more yards here. And obviously with the offensive line struggles that they've had to this point in the year and not having the continuity until these last few games, that probably has played a factor. But maybe they found something here, and now they can kind of take this group and move forward.
Yeah, what's important, I like you point out the Antonio Gibson. When he was brought in, that's also a guy like could be a good third down back, good in pass pro, good at pass catching. This is when the coaching has to step up. And we did see Alex Van Pelt do glimpses of that. Their very first play of the game, they had an extra offensive lineman actually motion into the fullback position. On Ramondre Stevenson's game-winning touchdown run from the half-yard line, they had 3 extra offensive linemen in on that play. They had their 5, and they went super jumbo on that to have as many big bodies. And you know what? If you got to do that more times than not, 6, 7 offensive linemen out there and just slowly chip away at this Tennessee defense, then do it. Just go that way. You have to, and that's what makes great coaches, especially in the NFL, Don't force your personnel to fit your system. A great coach makes your system work with the personnel that you're given. And that's what happens with injuries. And that's where we've seen a guy like Mike McDaniels suffer with when Tua's not in the game. That offense just loses all its juice. Well, what can Alex Van Pelt do? Where he showed the motions at the snap, which to me is an improvement from earlier in the season where it was very stagnant. It's beyond the pre-snap motions. It's already moving offensive linemen to get certain linebackers off their spot and create space in other areas of the field and attack. And they did that, like on the pass to Pop Douglas on the screen pass to start the game, and he got a first down. Need more of that from AVP. And weeks like this, Jahmai, you need more from the coaching. I was pleasantly surprised on Sunday. Once Drake Maye went down, I brought out the white flag. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
I was given zero confidence, but I was proven wrong, which I'm always down for in this game of me being a critic and me being the armchair quarterback. I'm always down to be proven wrong. It was cool to see that from Alex Van Pelt, their offensive coordinator. I want to see it 2 weeks now, whether Drake Maye is going or not.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, George, because that was literally the thought that was in my mind, because I'm curious to think what you think about this offense going forward with Jacoby Brissett, because you have been very critical of him. Obviously, the offense hasn't looked great. The down the field throws haven't been there. But as you talked about, you're ready to wave the white flag, but he showed you something on Sunday, and I wonder if he can continue that and bring that momentum into this week at Tennessee should he be the starter.
You know, if he has a full week of prep, he obviously knows the system. The team knows him. Like, why not? And the same of, I was very critical of Alex Van Pelt. And I am one, it's just like, any draft pick. Like, just take the NFL as is. To say Jalen Polk, who's dealt with his case of drops, has had his struggles, if I'm writing him off after 7 games, like, shame on me. That's not right. He's a rookie. He's only 7 games in. You need 2-3 seasons before you really assess a guy, let alone anybody. I'm still holding it out on Alex Van Pelt. He's proven me right a lot of the games, and then all of a sudden he proved me wrong in the way they adapted. But let's see it again. It's a full game with Jacoby Brissett. And the spots that I did like of how he's moving around offensive linemen, how he's finding creative ways to get Pop Douglas the ball, who's taken out of the game plan from that point on. And a lot of like those drop passes, watching them back, I'm like, where'd the receiver get? No, they were open. Those were tight window throws. That was Jacoby Brissett stepping up. That was Drake Maye stepping up and using the game. I'm giving optimism for this offense, especially on this week. What's important is that this Titans offense can't score at a big clip. They don't have a lot of explosive plays. So at least the Patriots can keep up with them. The Titans defense is better than the Patriots, in my opinion, but it's not like the Pats have to go out and put up 30 points, 35 points. If they can go out and put up 21, if they could go out and put up 17, I'm asking for the bare minimum. Then that puts him an opportunity to win. And I'll be interested, and that's where I'm going to be fascinated by this game. I got to find ways to be fascinated. If it's Jacoby Brissett versus Mason Rudolph, I got to find something to make me interested in this game. It'll be assessing Alex Van Pelt, and I'll have that on me. I'm giving myself homework. Let me be keen on watching for certain things throughout the game on offense and see how AVP does.
Yeah, it'll be something that we watch for sure. But you mentioned kind of the lack of explosiveness from that Tennessee offense. And I had to actually look it up because I remember they got smoked by the Lions 52-14. So they only scored 14 points after being blown out by that margin. And you got to think that the Lions probably sat some of their starters as the game got late and they still were not able to move the ball. So that's another reason, I guess, more notches in my argument for the reason to sit Drake Maye and to let Jacoby have this first full week, because I think this week the Patriots, I mean, even record aside, had the Lions, the Titans had the identical record as the Patriots, I still feel like the Patriots are a better team. I feel like they have a more promising future now and in the future. So this is not one where you necessarily may need your rookie quarterback to go out and win you some ball games or kind of be that hero. Yeah. So I feel like this is an opportunity for everybody to kind of get right. No more drops. Let the offensive line kind of continue another season of meshing and everybody kind of get on the same page.
Jahmai, I know you were a basketball player throughout high school. You played in college too?
No college ball, man. Just focus on the books. I could have, though. I like to tell everybody I could have.
All right. So if you're playing in high school and you had an off night with your shot, what are you doing the next day? Or maybe that night. I assume you're putting up extra shots.
Yeah, well, if my shot's not falling, then I'm going to drive to the basket. I'm going to try to, draw contact, get going there. But, the next day I certainly be putting up shots, just working on my form, seeing what happened, or, just trying to find that rhythm. Basketball is a feel game, very much like a lot of sports, golf, baseball. So you want to kind of feel it, see the ball go into the net so you can gain that confidence back, because that can really throw you off your game.
And I hope these Patriots wide receivers, even though they have the day off on Monday, a victory Monday, I hope they're at the facilities at the Jugs machine catching 200 footballs each. They need to be putting the drops were bad. All on the chest, all on the numbers where the quarterback needs to put it.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, you get paid to catch the football, and if you're not doing your job, you should feel extra responsibility about coming back and being better because these guys are supposed to have the best hands around. You know what I mean? So at least on the team, you know, and to be not being able to drop the ball, and it's not like this has been, you know, blanket coverage. A lot of these balls, guys have been almost wide open from the NFL ranks, and they're dropping footballs. That just can't happen.
Yeah, my favorite thing is watching an NFL game. They see a replay on a catch, and you go, it's insane as that is open. Jacoby Brissett, he was throwing his guys open. They were getting schemed open. They weren't pulling through on their end. I hope to hear from that locker room, maybe, you know, an extra 200, 300 catches from the Jugs machine throughout the week. All right, let's get to our winners and losers from Week 8 in the NFL. I'll give you first go at this one. Who do you walk away from Week 8 with your winner, Jahmai?
My winner this week is going to be the LA Rams, and I like them because, you know, the NFC West is pretty much wide open.
Yeah.
The 49ers, they got the big win last night. The Arizona Cardinals got a victory, and the teams are pretty much neck and neck. It's arguably just based off of history and then what you look at a roster and project that to be, I think it's one of the tougher ones in the league. But the Rams getting their pieces back, Cooper Kupp returned, and he was on the trade block. I can think of about 10 teams that can use a guy of his skill set. But coming back, putting that noise behind him, Puka Nacua also returning, and that guy has been a stud since he stepped onto an NFL field. You know, I think combined those guys had, let me do the quick math here, 157 yards, a touchdown, and 12 catches. So getting Matt Stafford, we talked about feel earlier, and getting into the rhythm and the flow of a contest, and when you have those pieces, they help. So I like that Matthew Stafford had 4 touchdown passes. He threw for more than 1 touchdown for the first time this season. So it feels like they're turning a corner at the right time. And they're my winner from week number 8. But if I can have a 1A, I will say my 1A would be the Cleveland Browns and Jameis Winston. I mean, this guy threw for 300 and something yards, 3 touchdowns, and he just had an out-of-world experience, really turned back the clock to the type of player that we expected him to be coming out of Florida State. So to be able to take down a Ravens team, that was pretty big, but it'd be those 2 guys for sure.
Yeah, I love that. I like both winners, especially the Rams, to beat the Vikings on Thursday night. Like, that is a huge win for them as well because that Vikings team is legit. And coming off their first loss of the season, you know they're desperate. Jared Verse looked great for the Rams. Seeing Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua back in the fold for Matthew Stafford. And it's fun watching Matthew Stafford continually be one of the best quarterbacks in the league for so long. He's done it. I think, what did he come in the league? 09? It was Calvin Johnson 07. I think he was that 09 draft out of Georgia. 09. And since he stepped in, he's just been a sick gunslinger. I like that Rams pick. I'm piggybacking on you. I put the Browns down as well. Jameis Winston. Well, he stepped in, 334 yards, 3 touchdowns, a huge win over the Ravens. But this is a win for Browns fans, Browns coaches, Browns players. And what I want to hammer home, this is a win for everyone except the owners, the Haslams, because they went out and they gave Deshaun Watson that $230 million contract, 100% guaranteed. After not playing football for 700 days, and they kept forcing him in the lineup because obviously they're paying him that much. In his career so far for the Browns, he's averaged 177 yards per game, and he has 19 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. The last 3 guys that have spots started when Deshaun Watson's been out, Jacoby Brissett, Joe Flacco, Jameis Winston, they've averaged 268 passing yards per game. They have 28 touchdowns to 14 interceptions in 2 less games playing. And the last 6 starts by Joe Flacco and Jameis Winston, they've all broken 300 yards. Deshaun Watson hasn't done that once in his time in the Browns. It just shows how bad Deshaun Watson is, how bad that contract was, and how bad of owners the Haslams are, that they went and signed him to that. He didn't want to play for the Browns until they said, hey, it's 100% guaranteed. And then they kept forcing a great coach like Kevin Stefanski to play him. So I could have said the Haslams are my losers. I have someone else for my losers. But who do you have for your loser?
It sounds like they are. It certainly sounds like they are. I'm going to go with the New York Jets. They are my losers of this week because this was supposed to be their get-right game against the New England Patriots. But now, you know, you heard Aaron Rodgers comments post game, and they have to get comfortable with being in the darkness, because that's
Peace.
what this they have to find peace with the darkness, because that's what this franchise is right now. Just 2-6 on the season. They fired Robert Saleh. I don't know if it was his fault, but they certainly haven't gotten right in this 3 games since his firing. The defense, they've allowed 85 points, 0 takeaways. I love Jeff Ulbrich. He's a ex-49er. He went to the University of Hawaii, so I got love for him being that 808 connection. But they haven't been getting it done, even now that he's taken the helm. And a lot of it has been really on the players on the field, the 22 guys who are on the field, either on offense or defense. And they traded for Davante Adams. He's been okay to this point. Really hasn't been able to get any of the history of being in rhythm with Aaron Rodgers back into play. We haven't seen that just yet. And then, they're on a short week, so they really can't sulk and think about it, because they're playing on Thursday night and they got the Houston Texans. I'm not sure what can happen this week, but you never know, because, in football, crazy things happen, and maybe they turn it around, but I just don't see it. I just don't see this franchise doing anything, because they had a Super Bowl or bust expectation, I think, before the season started, and even more so trading for an elite wide receiver like Davante.
It's all in on them. Yeah, you're right. They fired the defensive head coach, and their defense has been terrible, and they're yet to get a win. For my loser, aside from the Haslams, I went with the Cowboys on this one. I mean, they get embarrassed on national stage. We see Trevon Diggs going at a reporter, basically telling him to hold D's right after the game. And what's crazy, that in that play, there was a catch and run by George Kittle, where Trevon Diggs is covering someone else. But as he turns around to see Kittle getting yards after the catch, he just kind of kept jogging downfield and didn't try to make a tackle until the very last minute, where Kittle almost scored. And in the sequence, what is nuts is that wasn't at a press conference or locker room availability. There's a cool down period for people that don't know, where the players get in the locker room. They're given 15, 20 minutes to cool down. Media comes in and interviews them. Trevon Diggs saw that on his phone, on his timeline, walked out of the locker room to confront that reporter. So it wasn't even he's getting held against a fire by the media and they're asking him questions. He literally goes, "What was it? You want to talk about that tweet? You can't do what I do." And the tweet literally was, "What is Trevon Diggs doing here?" Compile that with them now having 4 losses, and given their last 3, Ravens, Lions, 49ers, all contenders, all great teams, but it's just the unraveling in that locker room for the Cowboys. Their superstars acting like this. I never mind laughing at Jerry Jones and the Cowboys, because they're just shoved down our throat. So to me, they're the loser on this one. On top of, that was a defense that let the 49ers run for 223 yards on the day, and Brock Purdy just have a day through the air. Again, with all these weapons out, all these guys in and out of their lineup, the 49ers still showed up and the Cowboys did not.
Yeah, that's absolutely absurd. I mean, you got guys looking at Twitter and tweets now from reporters and then going after them post-game. That's just loser behavior. That's what poverty franchises do. You can't be having that happen. You can't be doing that, especially when you're the Dallas Cowboys. You're America's team, right?
Yeah.
And people don't look at you to be that. I'm not going to give them too much slack, though, because I did not expect them to beat the 49ers this week.
Yeah.
I feel like Dallas is one of those teams that, as you talked about, always push down our throats. So there's this expectation narrative that is spun on this squad. But I'm not sure if they really have the pieces to make it happen this year. Micah Parsons going down was probably huge for their defensive strategy and some of their scheming, because that is an elite pass rusher. But I really haven't seen it from Dak either. And he's almost regressed since he secured his bag too. I feel like, there could be more, even though they did come back in that game, and him and CeeDee Lamb were able to take advantage of some blown coverages against the 49ers. But I feel like I need to see more from Dak, and they were a loser on Sunday, not only in the win column, but also off the field.
They were losers on the chat, and I don't think there's a bigger L to be handed out than when we call you loser and our winners and losers. And I agree, the Parsons point, the Saints ran all over them when Micah Parsons is on the field. This has been a season-long issue for them. But that is a great point. You're without a Micah Parsons, but also we haven't seen the answers at all. And Dak and CeeDee were great, but then Dak ends the game with 4 straight incompletions.
Yeah.
It was a 30-24 final. They made that push at the end, but we see what a great and sound franchise does, like the San Francisco 49ers, compared to a franchise like the Cowboys, where all they can push on is what happened in the past. They have nothing currently working for them. You know what works currently, though, Jahmai? It's Boston has entered the chat. I appreciate you taking the time, my man. It's always good having you on the show.
Yes, sir, man. Always good to be with you, George, man. It's great. It's like a throwback to what we used to do.
Right, exactly. My day's just starting out at NS and us on After Hours and NSU
Yeah.
and all that. Hey, he's Jahmai Webster. I'm George Balekji in the PNC Bank studio. This was Boston's End of the Chat. Wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, Amazon Prime, please like, subscribe, download, rate, and review. If you're watching on NESN's YouTube page, hit the subscribe button as well. He's J-Dub. I'm GB. We'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.
Peace.